Hello, and welcome to Check It Out Comrade, an indie game podcast where every 2 weeks we bring you 2 indie games and tell you what we like about them. I'm Nick Lauber.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this week we are doing Kerbal Space Program and Octodad Dadliest Catch.
Classics. Indie classics.
Pretty much at this point. Stuff that was fast.
Yeah, well, these are both games that we wanted to do in earlier episodes, and then didn't, for one reason or another.
Yeah.
I had a hard time getting Octodad to run on my computer for a while, and such, but we're getting around to them now.
Yep.
And it's unusual for us in that I think that this episode probably has the biggest imbalance of one of us having a lot of experience with the game and the other one not having very much at all.
Right.
So Nick, tell me everything about Kerbal Space Program that I didn't learn in like the hour or so I fucked around with it.
It's okay. We'll make up for it next week when you do a game that I have not touched very much of. So, Kerbal Space Program. It is a space flight simulation game developed by a company called Squad, who's actually, I learned this recently, they're an advertising company who one of their employees started making this game, and they're just like, yeah, we'll fund you doing that. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So they started their own games division, starting with Kerbal Space Program. It's available as a public alpha early access on Steam, and is available on Windows, Mac, and Linux. And looks like the very first game, or the very first public version, was in June of 2011. So we're going on pretty much 3 years of alpha development already.
Yeah, and it's a fairly full-featured alpha, I would say. Like I didn't feel like it was missing much.
No, it's definitely at this point kind of feature edition more so than any core gameplay left to be developed. So
yeah, and when you say it's a space flight simulator, like that's part of it, but it's really like a space program simulator.
Yeah, at this point, it's becoming more and more like that. At first, it was basically just Lego rocket ships. Put a rocket ship together and see what you can do with it. But now there's actually kind of missions and research you have to do, and a crew you have to keep tabs on and try not to lose. So it's getting very much to be a full space program simulator instead of just some space flight Legos.
Yeah, and like, so the idea is the version, the most recent version that I played. There are 3 modes, and I played with 2 of them. In the mission mode, there is this science element where you're gathering this resource and trying to develop items by doing experiments, and then science kind of acts as a currency, from what I could understand. So you do successful missions, and you have different kind of parts to your rocket that will give you more science. And then in sandbox mode, you're just trying to ostensibly get to the moon, right? Like you want to travel through space and get to other planets.
So the sandbox mode is you have all the parts unlocked, and your only goals are basically the goals you set for yourself. So it's just free roam. Everything's open to you. Do what you want. The career and mission modes are new additions that have come in kind of more recent versions, and they add 2 resources each. So in career mode, I think is the one where all you need to do is collect science to unlock parts. So the whole tech tree is introduced, and you start with just very basic parts, and then you can unlock them by doing experiments in various places to bring back science points, which allow you to unlock further things on the tech tree. And then mission mode adds a further resource on top of that of funds, which require you to take and do missions that are they have actually kind of a widespread of what they want you to do, but it's companies asking you to test various parts or do various things in the game, and they give you funding in response to doing them. And the funding comes into play in that every ship you launch, based on what parts are in it, costs different amounts.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can actually run dry of funds if you keep messing up missions and kind of go into debt based on crashing too many ships on attempts to make other missions. So it's another kind of level of difficulty.
Is it game over when that happens?
I'm not sure.
Go bankrupt?
Actually, you might be able to bury yourself into a hole, but I don't think the game actually tells you game over. You might get yourself to a point where you can't actually launch any ships because you don't have funding, and you have to try and perform your missions on minimum funding, and then at that point, if you can't perform it, then you're
you just can't continue.
Yeah.
It's funny that they added those things, because like the game, from just like my brief touch with it, it doesn't feel like it needs any complexity, like at all. Like it feels very complicated to me.
It kind of it is, but it can run dry. I think the kind of point of missions is to give you um, just kind of points to hit on your journey through like learning all the things you kind of need to learn in order to successfully be quote unquote good at KSP.
Yeah.
So you can definitely get like in sandbox mode. When I was playing it before, like I set a mission for myself to get to the moon, and I did that, and I set my mission myself to do this and that. But at some point, like it was either what I wanted to do was too far out of my own capabilities, or I just got bored. And missions kind of will continually kind of put food on the string in front of you and keep
Yeah.
you going.
It's just like it's not so much because I understand like that principle. Like it's similar to the modes in Minecraft that
Right.
they introduced, but the it's more like I guess like and this is probably a common thing for people to say when they play this game, but I guess I'm just kind of staring at this golf where I can't really imagine having, like if somebody gave me a goal in the game, like I would not really know what to do.
Right.
Like there's a lot of guides out there written in on YouTube and everything on how to kind of figure this game out, and I watched some of them, but like I still just wasn't like I feel like it reminds me of when we did Prison Architect, where like the structure and everything is there, but some of the like UI and intuitiveness like is not quite there. It doesn't feel very intuitive to me.
Yeah, I agree. And the tutorials, there are some tutorials built in, but they're kind of out of date and only take you so far. I think that's kind of the part where you can definitely still tell this game is alpha.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that they just need to make it because right now it caters to like a real specific, kind of drive. Like I get the idea of like having this sandbox and having a goal and doing, and it's the game is like praised for its physics stuff. Like it's real sciencey.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so it's like I get that appeal, but like it almost feel like it's so weird. It's such a narrow base, like
it seems
just
like it.
Yeah,
It has a really big following for being a game that basically is an orbital physics simulation.
yeah,
Which
but
is
I mean, it
not.
could have even a bigger one if it just like smoothed off some of those edges. I think.
I agree. There needs to be a round, sort of gentle slope into the full on orbital physics you need to know to do any of the fun accomplishable missions.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. But I also think that that learning curve isn't as difficult to tackle as your brief spiel with the game kind of made you think. I think.
Yeah, I'm sure it can be done.
Well, and it becomes it's pretty intuitive because it's not a perfect physics model, but it's generally like based in reality, and it's intuitive to the point of like, oh, okay, so this is how stuff actually works. And once you kind of get the basic understanding of how you have to maneuver in terms of like gravity and stuff, how orbital physics actually work, which is no small feat. But once you have that, everything clicks, and you can basically do whatever the hell you want in the game.
Yeah, I can see that. It's got a nice sense of like aesthetics to it. Like the actual Kerbals themselves are pretty cute. And then the one of the rockets I made, I never figured out how to get it to go. Like I got a rocket to go up into orbit and just kind of float there. And like the music it makes when that happens is really nice. Like you get to this orbit and then like stars come out and it becomes really peaceful and everything. But I had no end game. So I just, doomed these guys just to float up there and starve to death.
Right.
Sadly enough. But, like it's got a really nice, like kind of sense of music and graphics to it as well.
One thing I really like is I don't think the developers really intended this from the start, but because, such of the learning the basic mechanics of the game is such a trial and error thing right now, it's kind of given the Kerbals themselves this reputation as like this total risk takers, like just cannon fodder, throwing themselves at it. Like it's a space program where no science is actually done. It's just like keep going until you finally figure out what you need to do.
It's like
whoever in the process. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like it's become sort of a running joke now that like they're building these rocket ships out of whatever they have around, and they're prone to just kill who's ever dumb enough to get on board of them.
Yeah, but you have to move forward.
Yeah, so the only astronauts you have are the the dumbest and therefore bravest among you.
Yeah, and it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, so I've played quite a bit of this game, and I just wanted to kind of briefly point out, like we basically talked about the basic mechanics, but the community of this game is really growing huge, and especially like on the modding side, it's introducing a lot of really cool additional stuff in the game. Which for you, you're like, what the hell else do I need? There's a
Right.
whole lot of stuff in here already. But I've actually been having a lot of fun with some various cool things that are being added in. There's people adding in like near future technologies that are like possible, maybe science fiction-y kind of stuff to unlock later in your tech tree. And people are doing things like you can create terrain scanning satellites that you can build like a network around a planet and map the whole planet out and find out where the anomalies are, which are like kind of Easter egg objects that the developers have hidden all over all the planets.
Yeah, I was looking at those on a list of like Easter eggs on Wikipedia.
Yeah, it's got a lot of them, and they're pretty cool. And man, yeah, there's one that's coming up right now. Kind of an iteration on a previous mod, but it's adding a resource that you can like mine from the surfaces and atmospheres of all the planets. So you can build a ship that is capable of mining this resource, take it to the moon, and it'll convert that resource into fuel. And then you can take it from there to other planets. And also kind of life support based on the same concept. We have to like keep oxygen and other resources around for your Kerbals, and so it becomes a like full on colonization game as opposed to just an exploration.
Yeah, it's an interesting, like, one of the ideas, because there's a lot of these kind of like space exploration games, but what Kerbal seems to do is where those will hand wave, like the development stuff, like that you just come into it late enough to where all this stuff is a given,
right?
And this is like, what if you take that kind of game and work, start even earlier,
right?
That. So like they're adding the things that would turn it into something like Starflight, or and who knows what they'll end up adding.
Right.
But that you start even earlier in that, which is really neat. Like that's an interesting way to make a game. It's like, it reminds me of like if you wanted to do like a platformer, but like you had to learn how to jump.
Right.
Like what if like there's a game that was like, and segueing into the next game we're talking about, there's kind of like Quappish, where like you are mastering the controls and learning how to jump, and then you go on to do something like they add complexity to it. Like now that you know how to actually move, let's give you things to move around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. It's a really, really neat concept of like that. It's definitely an apt name that they called it a space program game as opposed to just a space exploration or rocket ship building game.
Yeah.
Because you're starting from the ground up, and where you end is up to you. You could have a network of satellites throughout the whole universe.
Sure.
Which right now, I mean, it is a complete solar system right now. It has like 8 some odd planets or something like ours. So you can colonize basically the whole spiel and have your fun doing whatever you want to do in a route that you'd never be able to take otherwise. Like there's no games about that right now.
Pretty neat.
Yeah. I don't know if I think that's probably about all there is to check out about Kerbal Space Program. Really, the only thing to do is kind of to jump into it and see if it's your style.
Yeah, or watch it played.
Yeah,
I think is a good idea. Like start with that because like we described it all right, but you really have to be into this kind of game. I think like it does feel like even though it's very popular, it does feel very niche-y to me.
Yeah,
and like for the people who are into this, like it's going to be huge. Like this, like, oh, I've been waiting for this my whole life. And I think that there are probably a lot of people, like, I don't know how much of it I'll play. Like, I respect it, and I think it's really cool. I don't know if it's necessarily for me, though.
Right. No, I'm sure there's gonna be people more like you who this just isn't their game. But yeah, you're definitely right that, like, for me, coming across it, I was just like, oh, this is everything I've ever wanted in a simulation game. I want to just keep going until I figure out how the fuck to fly a spaceship, and then I can take it wherever I want.
Yeah. It's undeniably super neat.
Yeah.
And
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, moving to the other end of the spectrum of something that is like not a simulation. I mean, I guess it is a simulation, but I mentioned Quap, like the other game, Octodad, Dadliest Catch.
Yeah, so Octodad, Dadliest Catch. I'll give the technical details here. It's a game. They're calling it an adventure game. I guess that's accurate, but it's It's from a developer called Young Horses, who are all, or mostly at least, former DePaul University students.
Mhm.
Who they in 2010 released a small indie game called just Octodad, and then Octodad Dadliest Catch was a kind of Kickstarter sequel to Octodad that expanded on the basic idea. Which the basic idea basically is that you are a an octopus pretending to be a human dad.
Yeah, and that's really it, and that's where like the it is like it is a one joke kind of premise.
Yeah.
But I was kind of surprised by how well it like some of the things kind of come across in the game. Like I was surprised because we were trivia. We were going before this game went run on my computer. We were going to pair it with Frog Fractions.
Mm-hmm.
As kind of like this is the like one note joke kind of games,
Right.
And it is that, but like it's slightly more sound than that while still being a really slight experience.
Right.
In that, like, it's got a sensibility to it that I think is really sweet in a weird way. Like it's kind of like good natured and cute in a way that I don't see from a lot of games.
No, I agree. It's actually like a perfect kind of 10-year-old game. Not that I didn't enjoy it. Like it's perfectly enjoyable by full-grown adults, but it's got a whimsical fantasy to it.
Yeah, and there's just like there's nothing dark about it. Like the joke is that he is an octopus. He doesn't speak English. He's got it. Like there's a theme song in the beginning. It's like he's got a good thing going. Like he's into this. Like he loves this family. There's no like when you start thinking about like picking it apart at all. Like why is he doing this? Like what does he want? What does he get out of this? Like this seems like a nightmare. And he's just like real into being this dad and being this family, and that's like super cute.
Yeah.
And then there's like just the humor in the game is really really cute too, and just anti-edgy. Like I remember, or I got to the end of and then got stuck, but I got to the end of the aquarium stage.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to the aquarium, it's dangerous because there are marine biologists there. And there's a poster that just says, like, our marine biologists can recognize a fish when they see them. And then it's just like, oh, shit. Like, that's exactly what we don't need. Yeah. It's just, like, very cute, super, super cute kind of aesthetic and feel to the game.
Yeah, and basically the entire gameplay and the majority of the joke is that it's very hard to walk around looking like a human when you're an octopus. So the controls are all fitted towards moving one tentacle at a time and grabbing onto things and trying not to flop over onto people in a way an octopus would if they were trying to walk on two legs.
Right. Like, yeah, similar to, I guess, like, what is the game? A little bit like the Novelist. Like, there's this suspicion mechanic to it, which, like, if you want to, you don't have to play with that. If you just want to fuck around and see the humorous stuff, if you play on easy, it turns that off. Right. But if you play on medium, you can have this. And I never got caught. Like, it's not that extreme.
No.
It's way more extreme in the original version of the game. Like, yeah. I remember not liking Octodad 1 that much and liking Dadliest Catch a lot more. But so you need to look like, you're never going to look like a human, but you just need to not slap people around and not knock things over.
Right.
Because people will get rude, or people will think that you're rude.
Right.
And you're just doing mundane tasks, but it's like you have no bones. And that's why it's challenging. Like, I would almost call it a puzzle game more than like a physics puzzler.
Yeah.
More than an adventure game. Cause like, yeah, how do you climb this ladder? Like with this control
exactly.
scheme?
I think the very first thing you have to do is pour your daughter a glass of milk.
Yeah.
And it's like, look at this is the most mundane thing you could possibly do, but it becomes this challenging game-ized thing because you're a fucking octopus.
Right. Yeah. And what it does is it like takes those things and it like it is a one-note joke and a one-note gameplay premise that doesn't outstay its welcome.
Exactly. It's like a 3-hour little game. Yeah,
like if that. Like it could it's short. Like I watched friend of the network, Ubergoose is like the world champion speedrunner of this right now. Mm-hmm. And he can do it in like 18 minutes.
Well, is that invoking any glitches or anything? Or is
there's a couple skips. But like a glitchless run is still not very long.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a short game, but it needs to be a short game because it is what it is, and but what it is like just really like pretty funny and charming in a way that, like, I think is more successful than Goat Simulator, which is the other thing that's reminded me of that we did.
Yeah, I agree. It's basically cutesy fully conceptualized story-based co-op.
Yeah.
Take the gameplay of co-op and try and turn it into an entire 2-hour experience with a storyline and characters and voice acting and all that goodness, and this is what you get.
And unlike Goat Simulator, which like the attempts of Goat Simulator to kind of incentivize and contextualize play, like I don't think are very good. That's kind of like the theme of this episode, because we're talking about that with Kerbal too. Like both these games could just be toys, and then they add this element. But like in Goat Simulator, they just make everything you do just is bombastic. You knock everything down and get tons of points. So it's like, it's not quite, it's a little bit like a Tony Hawk game, but not quite,
right.
This, like they don't, the contextual things you do to get points and accomplish goals with this goofy environment with like silly physics, are like have a challenge curve to them. Like it's a little closer to the game spectrum, of that thing. And it just kind of makes it work a little bit better, I think. Even though both games are essentially one-note jokes.
I kind of, like, something about this game makes me feel like this should have been done before.
Yeah.
And I don't think it has, to the point of, like, a game, a full storyline thing that is all about...
specifically an octopus? Pretending to be
not
an
octopus, okay. But specifically getting around, like, a physics based thing. Like, almost like Portal, but Portal's way more...
Well, Portal is empowering, and this is disempowering to the extreme.
Yeah.
Like Portal, the challenge is external, and here the challenge is entirely like internal.
Yeah.
It reminds me. There's a game that's on the Basement Collection, like an Edmund game where you control like a 3-legged spider where you control each of his limbs.
Right.
One at a time. It's a little bit like moving is a little bit like that.
I think that that new game too, that's about like half nude bodybuilders and stacking on your friends, is pretty much the same idea too.
Yeah. I think, isn't that made by the Quap people?
Oh, it probably is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the follow up to Quap and Clop. Yeah. I don't know if Clop was made by Quap, but this is way more playable than Quap too. Like Quap is Quap is Quap, but this is you can actually make some progress in this and enjoy the storyline, and enjoy just kind of the asides that people are making. Again, it doesn't cease to be funny to me. Like, just like you can, like, there's the joke of like an animal that can do something but not do it well, and fools people. Like I remember, there's like an old Saturday Night Live sketches from the late '80s and early '90s about Toonces the cat, and like Toonces is the driving cat. Toonces can drive. But the joke is he's really bad at it. So he can drive for a while, but he always crashes them off a cliff because he's a cat. But up until that point, everyone's fine with him driving. And it's just like, and they're just like, Toon says, no, you're terrible at this. And then, and that's very funny to me for some reason.
That's actually a really good kind of analog to this game.
It's like Toons is the game.
Toons is the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is storyline. I don't know if it's really worth us digging into further than we already did.
Yeah.
I don't think we really need a spoiler section or anything. But suffice to say, like, this game, despite it being like a story that you're following, is all just about the experience. So it's definitely worth checking out. It's a really small, short experience that it doesn't overstay its welcome, which is good because it's like we said, it's a one trick pony.
Yeah.
So if it was a 8-hour game, we would all hate it. But
it does not support that premise. Like, and they're doing like a downloadable content pack thing for it, or just an add-on, which is fine. Like little bursts of this with new fun situations.
Right.
I think that's perfect. The story that's there is actually kind of like heartwarming. Like, you get exposed, and then your family knew it all along and still loved you anyway.
One of them did. Your daughter.
Oh yeah, your daughter. Yeah, your daughter knew all along.
But your wife for 10 years had no fucking idea.
And you had those kids. Somehow. I love the gurgles. Like, I love the, slightly passive aggressive and yet firm gurgle. Like the subtitles.
Yeah, the subtitles are really good. They all just describe his bubbling, and somehow everyone understands him perfectly.
Yeah.
Despite us all knowing it's just little bubbly gurgles.
Yeah, it's a real it's a real cartoon universe kind of thing that.
A real charmer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a charmer. It's cute. I guess like if you were the kind of person who equates play amount to dollar amount, you might be upset about it because it is like $15 for a really short single note joke.
Right.
But it's always in bundles and shit.
Yeah, so, it's going to be like $5 in the next Steam sale, and you spend $12 to go see the latest 3D blockbuster. So.
Totally. I think right now as we're recording, which may not be useful when this comes out, but like there's like an indie pack on Steam right now that's like the Stanley Parable, like a bunch of stuff I already have. But it's and I think maybe Kerbal's on there, but it's like $20, and it's like really, really good recent indie games. And that's well worth your time.
So if that's still on sale when this comes out, you all should buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely check this out. It's cute.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, I think that's about it, guys. So Gary, where can they find us if they want to get in contact or send us some games to play or something?
Yeah, you should definitely do both those things. And probably the easiest way to do it is on Facebook or Twitter. On Facebook, we're at facebook.com/checkitoutcomrade. On Twitter, we are at Comrade Podcast. Mm-hmm. You can also go to Duckfeed.tv in the contact forum, and there is a pull down with Check It Out Comrade for suggesting games. Or if you are an indie game developer and you want us to check out your game, we will be happy to check out your game.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a Patreon going on if you want to help support Duckfeed and this show. Mm-hmm. Any amount definitely helps us, and we're getting new equipment out of it and all sorts of really good stuff. And also, rate and review us on iTunes. Tell your friends about us. We want as many listeners as possible because we like interacting with you guys and checking out games with you. So
yeah, feel free to come say hi. And then one of the other shows on the network, Watch Out for Fireballs, is doing a live show at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. And me and Nick will both be at that.
Yep.
So if you, I imagine that most of the people who listen to this show listen to that show as well. But if not, and you want to come hang out with us, we're definitely going to do some kind of network meetup thing during that weekend.
Yep. So, and I'm always at the booth even when those guys are doing their live stuff. So you can come say hi. So. Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Mm-hmm.